Welcome to the latest edition of the Gutshot Podcast. Sam and I have honestly a huge privilege and a pleasure today to welcome what is in essence, I think, one of Malaysia's, in fact, probably Malaysia's most famous and well-read social and political bloggers of recent years. I'm referring, of course, to Syed Akbar Ali, writer of Outside the Box, the blogger. And Sam, you and I have been reading his blog for ages now, and you've got particular reference to his background and what he's done in the past, right?
Yeah, I think we've known each other for more than 10 years. He started out as a banker for more than a decade, and he became then a business owner and a writer, and he writes completely different than everybody else. His audience, I would say, he appeals to the most intelligent part of our audiences. Okay?
Which makes me think, why are you and I? Well, why am I?
right. And part of his interesting biography was he was also appointed in 2013 at the what they call the Consultation and Corruption Prevention Panel, which advises our Malaysian Anti Corruption Commission. Right, he's well known for his blog, as you said, and his book. His most to me personally, his most famous and book and interesting take is titled "Malaysia and the Club of Doom: The Collapse of the Islamic Countries," which was published in 2006, and it was ceremoniously banned in 2016 by the government.
Which means it was bloody good.
Yes, it is. So I think without further ado, maybe Syed, let's say a few words as an intro on your
Thank you.
Your background.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it was unceremoniously banned in 2016.
Yeah.
The book was out of print by then. Because I wrote the book in 2006. A book will run for a couple of years, and then, the sales will drop off. So by 2016, the book was actually out of print, and only a few of the bookshops still had it. So when they banned it, it was basically not on the shelves anymore. Kind of late, like after the horses have bolted, they ran to close the barn. So if you ask something about me to introduce myself, I think I'm known now as a blogger.
Yeah.
As a writer, been writing for a long time. Yes, I was a banker, a very interesting period of my life. I used to work in project finance and loan syndications. So all those big projects that Malaysians don't like or which we are burdened with, I had a big hand in financing all those projects, including the toll highways, the private power plants and all that. That was my game in those days. But I wrote a couple of newspaper columns for some time. I wrote in Berita Minggu, a column in Malay on Sundays, and I wrote a column called Human Rights in the Sun newspaper in English. Then the Prime Minister changed. My old good friend Tun Dr. Mahathir retired, and the new Prime Minister came on board, and I lost both my columns. So I had this itch for writing. I write a lot. So then I wrote my first book.
I see.
2005, to digress a little. And then from there, I went on to write Malaysia and the Club of Doom. And then a third book called The Things in Common. And then I wrote another book called Relevance. And the last one was Kafir Who.
Okay.
So those are my books. And then, of course, I was very much into blogging. I've been doing it for some time. I've been on social media for a long time. So people know me now as a blogger. Yes, I do have audience. People do listen to what I say. I get feedback, things like that. And so I'm here today.
All right.
I think the question is the why, Syed. I mean, obviously people there's many of us who work in the corporate world and who do have these, employment and businesses, but very few of us feel passionate enough to really take a stand and not only write books, but do it consistently and for the very, very long term. I think the real question here is the why, Syed.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has some kind of a motivation, some kind of a drive. I basically am interested in, like the old sages say, to improve to make things better. And especially in our country now. So we live here. We are all here together in this boat. And then we have to look for the future. And I do see things that are less than good or things that are not so right happening the last more than 20 years. And as I wrote in my book, Malaysia and the Club of Doom, one of the things that you have to realize that it takes decades for societies to go this way or that way. Whatever you do at a national level, at societal level, it's going to take you, if you tweak with an education policy, it's going to take you 30 years, 40 years before you realize that we have done the right thing, or oops, we have messed up, you see. So I think we are collecting quite a few oops in this country. Oh, yeah. It's going to take time before we can see some of the results that are happening now, the sluggish growth and things like that. Is anyone happy with our education system? I think it's getting worse now. Yeah. A lot of things are sort of unraveling. The latest now is the health crisis, the health system. So these things didn't start yesterday. It started, as I said, decades ago. Just that I feel that, I don't know, maybe I'm just a critic or pessimist or whatever, but I've been observing these things for a long time. So I like to, wave the red flag. Sadly, unfortunately, a lot of things that I've been saying have come true. I'm not saying I'm some kind of a prophet, but for example, I wrote the book, The Club of Doom, Collapse of the Islamic Countries in 2006. 2011 was the Arab Spring, where basically the Arab countries collapsed, the system collapsed, and they have not recovered since then. So it doesn't take rocket science. If you just keep your eyes open and you listen to what people are saying and doing, you can get a good feel of where things are headed. So that was one of the reasons why I've been writing for so long. And I think I've been consistent. Some people might even say boring, because I keep repeating the same things. Mm-hmm. But some of these things need to be repeated because people have to be aware.
Yeah,
it's not something they should or they can hear only just once, and then you don't talk about it anymore. I think you have to keep repeating it.
I think that, Chong, that goes neatly into where we want to first talk about, because I think as we always mention, our Gutshot podcast, we want to hit the current news in the global media of what is happening around the world, and from the perspective of Asian thinking with a corporate business background, and especially for people like myself and Syed, who came from the Muslim background. Right, so we have deep understanding, and I would say, if you read Syed's blog, he's very objective in the way how he analyzes things, right? And that goes to the point that you were making. You predicted the slide in 2006, which means that you saw it way before 2006, right? For what is happening today. You saw it coming already, almost more than 2 decades ago, I would easily say, right? Am I correct in that assessment?
Definitely,
yeah. So it's like, what do you think? I mean, let's go broad first, and then we focus on certain areas. I mean, we've had the October 7th attack by Hamas on the state of Israel, and then the retaliation that came with it, that sparked this that is still currently ongoing in Gaza, and then the attack on the Iranian nuclear facilities. But actually, if you think about it, Israel went into Iran first even way before that. And that was a decapitation of their military capabilities, and then basically Trump sort of closed out the first the nuclear capabilities. The final act, exactly, perfectly put. And now, I mean, just recently we've got, which is actually quite curious. I've not really, which is the bombing recently in Syria by Israel. So maybe you can pull back to what I just said. Maybe you can take that first, which is how you look at what's happening vis-a-vis. Let's take the Iran situation, because the news has been pretty quiet since the attack from the Trump administration, right? Personally, I was like, oh, there's not going to be a regime change, which I think for me, which goes counter to what you already saw. They need a regime change, if you ask me, right? But what do you think? How do you look at that current situation? Where do you think that's going? And then maybe we flip to Gaza and Syria.
I suppose you don't have many friends in Iran, or maybe you do. But,
I don't. Unfortunately, I don't. That's, yeah.
Yeah, it's...
But your blog has been quite detailed in the way you have have made assessments of all these conflicts.
Yeah, I follow... I try to keep up with what is happening in the Middle East every day. It's a huge area, and it's totally complicated and confusing and confused. The mix of players there is just humongous, and it is a part of the world that is extremely important. To backtrack a bit now, I am very interested in the Middle East because it has a huge impact on us here. As you mentioned, both of us are Muslims, you see. So Middle East is identified as the ground zero of Islam. And whatever happens there has a huge bearing on Muslims here and Muslims throughout the world. You mentioned earlier political Islam. All that is linked. So whatever happens in the Middle East will definitely have repercussions in Muslim societies around the world, not just Muslim countries, Muslim societies. If you have 50,000 Muslims living somewhere in Birmingham, it's going to affect them too, you see. So it's important for everybody, not just if you're a Muslim, to keep track of what is happening in the Middle East. Because of one unfortunate word, the word is violence. Unfortunately, you cannot separate this word from a lot of things that are happening in the Middle East, and with extremism, they call it jihadism, things like that. It all boils down to violence, and it causes problems around the world. So we have to be aware of this. We in Malaysia have to make sure that we don't import too much of that. Unfortunately, it has happened. We have had instances where, people who were involved in, ISIS and all that, they were here and then they were arrested by the police, and we had to sort them out and things like that. We are fortunate that we have not suffered any major, terrorist acts in our country vis-a-vis Indonesia, famous Bali bombing, other countries, of course, in Europe and India and Sri Lanka and things like that. So we hope that doesn't happen here, but it is constant vigilance. You have to keep track. So let's get into the quagmire, the boiling cauldron in the Middle East.
Before you go there, can I just add to a bit to what you say? It's not just how it affects the Muslim society all over the world. I think the Muslim population is in excess of 2 billion in total. 1.8, about 2. Yeah. So if you got an extreme element of 10%, you got a couple of 100 million, right? So it affects including wherever the Muslim society is in place, and affects the surrounding society or countries that they are in place. So that's just a bit additional to what you just said. So
the recent the hostilities between Israel and Iran and the US bombing of Iran. This is, you see, from a military strategy point of view, neither country actually is an imminent threat or an existential threat to each other. Imminent threat means something which is going to happen like tomorrow, The army, the enemies gathered all their forces and they're going to attack you. It's going to happen tomorrow. They were really not in that situation. And neither were they, in my view, and neither were both of them existential threats. Existential threat is something that can happen tomorrow, next month, a year from now. So although the Iranians have been saying for a long time, death to America, death to Israel, and all those things, push the Jews back into the sea, that is sloganeering, perhaps to satisfy a domestic audience for their own, political purposes, domestic propaganda, just to get the crowds stirred up,
Right.
But Iran is 1,600 kilometers from Israel, across two countries, Iraq and Jordan, Iraq and Syria, Iraq and Saudi Arabia. It's so far away. There's no way that countries that are so far away are going to be a military threat to each other unless you're going to shoot missiles, which they ultimately did. But neither country is going to be able to invade the other and put them out of action. Although Iran has been saying that they want to liberate the famous Al-Quds, the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. That is a lot of sloganeering. Physically, it's quite impossible. I think it'll be easier for Malaysia to invade the Falkland Islands because there is no landmass between us and the Falkland Islands. It's 20,000 kilometers away. We can, we have two submarines. We can send it over there and take over the Falkland Islands and return it back to Argentina. Liberate Malvinas,
Yeah.
Malvinas solamente Argentina.
Assuming we can go, assuming the submarine can actually dive. Okay, go on.
But to say
That's what I was going to say.
But to say that Iran can, physically move forces across the desert, 1,600 kilometers, and invade Israel and chase the Jews back into the sea, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. No way. And neither do the Jews have any interest. The Israelis have any interest in attacking Iran. What is the military objective? But when you both develop missiles, they both have missiles, and then Iran started developing their nuclear capability. Not only there were a lot of dubious things about exactly how they were going about it. There was dispute. They said they're developing nuclear power, basically for civilian use. But the Israelis and Americans and the West was not fully convinced about that. But if they had gone ahead and developed nuclear weapons, added with the rhetoric, we're going to chase the Jews into the sea, we're going to destroy Israel, that is a very frightening combination. So that's why the Israelis have been saying that we will never allow belligerent states, enemy states, to get nuclear weapons. So, which is why in 1981, they bombed Iraq. Do you remember when they bombed the Iraqi nuclear reactor, the famous Osirak reactor?
Oh, okay, yeah.
1981, Saddam Hussein was starting a nuclear program. Again, it was just a nuclear reactor, a civilian nuclear reactor. To make electricity, you cannot make a nuclear atomic bomb from day one. It takes decades. But the moment Saddam Hussein said he wanted to build a nuclear reactor, they bombed it. 1981, before the reactor became hot, before they commissioned it, before they put the fuel inside, they bombed it. And then early 2007, the Syrians built a nuclear reactor, again for power generation, and the Israelis bombed it. Because both Iraq and Syria had made it clear that they are enemies of Israel, that constantly issuing threats and all that. So that the Israelis did not want to tolerate. Now Saudi Arabia is planning nuclear facilities, nuclear reactors, and I think UAE, if I'm not mistaken. But the Israelis are not worried about it because the Saudis and the UAE now are considered, they're not enemies. Okay, they may not be 100% buddies. They have not signed the
Abrahamic Accords.
or that, or not yet. But nevertheless, they are not belligerent. They don't issue threats against Israel every day. So because of that, the Israelis, they're okay. If Saudi Arabia wants to go ahead and develop nuclear power plants and all that, they're okay. So which goes to show that they react to threats. And if they see that it is becoming an existential threat, they will take action. You can't let a nuclear capability become an imminent threat. That's too late already.
Exactly.
Too late. So basically, that's what they have said they will do, and they're doing. But as you mentioned just now, before April 2024, the first Iranian strike against Israel was April 2024. There was no direct conflict between them. There's a lot of saber rattling, a lot of calling names and issuing statements and things like that. But there were the proxy conflict. Iran had proxies. Iran had the Hezbollah in Beirut, in Lebanon, and they had the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And the Hamas was not exactly a proxy of Iran, because Hamas is Sunnis. They are Muslim Brotherhood, whereas Iran is Shia. But nevertheless, the Iranians were supporting Hamas also, but they were using proxies, and then later the Houthis in Yemen joined in the fray. So it was a proxy war, using proxies to kind of take pot shots at Israel. But then again, you see, even though they had all these proxies, the proxies were militia, like Hezbollah, basically teenagers wearing jeans and sneakers running around. Yeah, that's it. The so-called missiles that they had were largely water pipes, steel water pipes. They will fill it in with rocket fuel and attach a warhead there. It's not guided. It doesn't have any kind of electronics. And they physically have to light a fuse, like old American Civil War style. I'm not sure. And then it shoots off, and that's it. They also had other capacities because they did bring in larger missiles, also supplied by Iran, which were more accurate, more lethal. But on the whole, it was basically a militia, run by this manned by young people, idealistic youngsters, who may not know what exactly is going on. And you are pitting this kind of militia against the fourth most powerful military in the world, without a doubt. The Israeli armed forces, Israeli defense forces are a very capable military. They have over 600,000 personnel, active about more than 200,000, reserves about 400,000, highly trained and equipped, armed with it's a technology game. The highest technology in the world in weapons manufacturing is in the West, and also in Israel and Russia.
Yeah, I mean, like even 40 years ago in my university, there was a whole bunch of Israeli students actually, and they just looked like all of us, right? Late teens, early 20s. But by that time, they were already like 1-2 years older than us, and they had been trained in, they were tank commanders, they were jet fighter pilots, they were trained to, hand-to-hand combat, they knew how to handle pistols, rifles, martial arts, and they could have killed any one of us Malaysians. Honestly, so he said, we better not piss any Israeli students off.
I want to just interject your story because it's very fascinating. I don't want to interrupt your flow of thought, but I had a question, quick one, on these proxies, right? Apart from basically Hamas or Hezbollah, which can, which has a direct threat to, acts of terrorism against the Jews and the Israelis. The rest it's just too far away. The Houthis are shooting merchant ships, I really don't understand the game plan of Iran, in a sense. I really don't, as you rightly put. And then it's an unwinnable thing to
Exactly.
go,
That's
for
the
the Hezbollah and the Hamases that, which even the PLO was vanquished, right? So now we have this, and now they are being chopped off. So what is this whole point?
Yeah. So that's a very good point because for someone like me who's non-Muslim and actually doesn't really care much about politics, right? But we have to care because, as you said, it affects everybody, right? So the question is, I think what Sam is trying to say, why is Iran? I mean, for example, what's Iran's why, right? What does it want? What's its intentions?
Yeah, that's why, as I said, they have the military strategy point of view is not there. It's zero. Iran can never invade or overthrow Israel, and neither can the proxies. As I'm saying, I was comparing the strength comparison.
But you say it with such certainty, right? I mean, what makes you so sure they can't do it?
No, so far they have not been able to. But let me finish the point
please.
On the military. The recent action between Israel and Iran was aerial warfare. The Israelis sent their jet fighters and the Iranians shot missiles. Nearly all the missiles and drones sent by Iran didn't hit their targets. There were some, but mostly all did not. But the Israelis were able to achieve a higher hit rate. It was almost 1-to-1. They launched bombs and missiles and rockets or whatever, and the targets were all hit. So the military capability is very highly imbalanced. As you said, the Israelis, they've been training their whole life, They're highly trained. Israeli Air Force pilots fly minimum 6 hours every week. US Air Force pilots fly 1 to 3 hours a week, 3 hours. Most other air forces are like that. So these fellas fly 6 hours a week minimum. So they are like razor sharp, So you're not going to be able to defeat these people in the Middle East, Hezbollah and Iran and Hamas. And we have seen that happening now. It was basically, to me, a suicidal mission. Hezbollah's chief, Hassan Nasrallah, has been killed. All the Hamas leadership has been wiped out. Hezbollah is basically, they have been defeated in Beirut, in Lebanon. They are down to bare bones. Hamas is also on the seriously degraded. They're not really a potent force anymore. They have basically been sacrificed. So what was the purpose in doing this? That's why I keep saying that it is more for domestic optics and domestic propaganda in Iran for the Ayatollahs to keep their people to motivate or to to galvanize support from their own people, because they have their own problems in their local domestic politics. Their popularity is not exactly very high in Iran. The Ayatollahs, it is highly debatable how popular they are in Iran, and there are people who say that, which I tend to agree, that they are not so popular, and this regime can be, if the conditions are right, they can be overthrown anytime. More importantly, there is a very strong undercurrent in Iran that wants change. So all these things that are happening in the Middle East, they spend money on Houthis and Hezbollah, is for the optics and the propaganda back home in Iran to tell the Iranian people that, they are doing something, they are fighting for Islam, they're going to liberate Palestine.
Yeah, they're the champions of Islam.
Champions of Islam. They back up Shia groups outside of Iran. Hezbollah is Shia, the Houthis are Shia, Yemen is Shia. So they want to be seen as the champions of Shia Islam to the Shia people inside Iran, because Iran is majority Shia. So that is the only logical objective I see in Iran doing all this, because militarily
it makes no sense.
Zero. It's zero. You're not going to drive the Jews into the sea. Not with teenage militia wearing jeans and sneakers. No way. You are sacrificing them, which is what has happened. They've all been sacrificed. But unfortunately, because they spend money, so money does buy support. Money buys guns. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the reason is ultimately power consolidation and staying in power, lah, essentially.
To be
right?
relevant.
To be relevant in
To
Iran.
appear relevant.
But you
your
just want to
own
retain
audience.
power, right? I mean, just to stay in
Because
the position of authority.
there's no real democracy in Iran, which is the other point. Maybe I want to discuss later when you
Please.
ask about Middle East. The big picture.
Yes.
There are no democratic countries at all in the whole of the Middle East. Even Tunisia is supposed to be democratic. I think they're having problems too. But the Middle East, from the extreme east to the west, it is either authoritarian or dictatorship or monarchy lah. There's no democratic country in the Middle East. The Ayatollahs say that they are democratic, but no one believes that, because the president is chosen from a pool which is nominated by the supreme leader. If the Ayatollah doesn't agree with the candidate to run for president, they have only a few, then you can't run for president. So only those who are endorsed by the Ayatollah, the supreme leader, it runs for president in Iran. But the supreme leader himself is not elected. He's for life. He's elected once, appointed once, and he remains for life. The present Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has been there for 36 years or something.
You could equally say that China has no democracy as well, and it's authoritarian. Why does China have a different economic situation?
No, I beg to differ. China has it's a authoritarian. It's a centralized government. It is communism need not mean it is authoritarian, but China is authoritarian, centralized government. But to say that they are not democratic is debatable, because in China, they mingle with the people down to the village level. This concept of town hall meetings and all that is a big thing in China. Wherever they want to do something, they really discuss things down to the town hall and the village level, where people do express their agreements, disagreements, and so on, whatnot. The government usually, one negative thing is that the government usually uses these meetings or this town councils to tell people, to tell them, not to talk down to them, but they also get feedback, and they do not ignore the feedback. When they were building that huge dam, the Seven Gorges, they shifted a couple of million people or something like that, and it happened quite smoothly and very well done. There were no serious protests, because the government from way before, they explained step by step what we're going to do. We're going to move you. We're building new, of course, they have the money to do things.
Yeah.
We're going to build new houses for you and everything. So they manage it well. So they get feedback. You don't find this in the Middle East, lah.
So let's take back to the Iranian situation, right? I think even though it is Shia, even in the majority Islamic Sunni population, they seem to become like a flag bearer of the Islamic cause, so to speak, within the mindset of Muslim in general. But like you said, the popularity of the Iranian Ayatollah regime is really not there. Some put it that actually their support is even less than 30%.
I wouldn't dispute that. Yeah.
So, why I thought that actually the condition for regime change was quite ripe if the action were to continue within Iran, that would liberate the majority of the people. Because let's not like you say, it's about technology at the end of the day. And in Iran, the technology, so to speak, is held by the Iranian, the Revolutionary Guards. They are the one holding the machine guns, right? So you really can't expect when a regime holds the guns, for people uprising to be successful And that's what happened in the Arab Spring, in my opinion, partly as well. So what do you say about them? Where do they go from here, you think?
Yeah, I mean, the exact situation perhaps existed in Iran at the time of the Shah. The Shah was much more powerful. He had the security services, Sabak and all that. And same thing, any resistance, any rebellion anywhere, they would come down hard on them. But ultimately, when people had nothing more to lose, they overthrew the Shah. I think the same thing will happen to the Iranian people now. One of the outcomes of this attack, this Israeli attack in Iran, is that the IRGC has been proven to be much less than what they were thought to be in terms of their capacity. They have been degraded substantially. And just Wednesday, I was listening to the podcast coming out, Iranian podcast coming up from outside Iran, where they report and they show videos of explosions in Tehran on Wednesday. Multiple explosions at IRGC-related offices, homes, and structures like that. So there's still some kind of this. Somebody's doing a lot of sabotage work on the ground, but actually there's a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. It only lasted 12 days, and that was more than a month ago. So there are other people now on the ground in Tehran who are carrying out these sabotage activities. And it's headed somewhere. It's difficult to say now how or where it is going, but one of the things that the Israeli Prime Minister said is that there is going to be a regime change in Iran. Netanyahu has said that. So maybe they are working with the Americans on something. I don't know. But the fact is there are still explosions and things like that going on in Tehran as late as Wednesday. So I really don't know what's going to happen. The Iranian airspace is still closed. People don't realize this a lot. Since the thing started, the hostility started on June 13th, Iranian airspace has practically been closed. All the international flights are rerouted. It is not by the Iranians. I think they have been told to avoid Iran. The Iranian airspace is closed. Tehran airport is down to like bare bones operation. The significance is that this may embarrass the regime. If there are no flights coming into KLIA for a month or 2 months, people ask what's going on in the country. It's a major embarrassment. So Iranian airspace is closed. So I really do not know what's going to happen in Iran soon, but I think maybe something is cooking. We really don't know. So yes, they use force, definitely. They only have force to come down hard on the people. Remember when that young girl was killed?
Yeah.
Masa Amini,
Yes.
2022, I think. There were serious riots and protests, street demonstrations throughout Iran. They were actually quite shaken by that because the turnouts were big. The only thing why the regime change didn't happen then and even now is that there is no clear-cut, organized opposition waiting to take over. If the Ayatollah regime falls tomorrow, who's going to be the leader? There are few people who are prepared, but they are outside the country. One is a crown prince, the former Shah's son.
Yeah.
His name is Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. He's about our age now, 60s and something, and he seems ready to step in to provide the leadership, but not everybody in Iran may support him. And then there is that lady, her name is Mariam Rajavi. She also has significant support, but among exiled Iranians. And so the issue now is who can step in and take over Iran, who can organize resistance. That is a blank space there, which is why that regime change is not happening, or it's not. There's no one there to lead on the ground. So this situation has to change, and whoever is planning a regime change in Iran has to fill in this blank. You must provide a name, a figurehead, a person.
Yeah, somebody to rally around.
And they must have a platform, and then they must have people on the ground in Iran to to pave the way to make things ready, and then the regime change can happen. Otherwise, let's say tomorrow there's a lucky strike and they take out the ayatollahs and all that, then who's going to take over the country? So I think that is why they have not taken out the ayatollah. They have not tried to decapitate him, because then he might throw the whole country into
Chaos.
major chaos. Yeah.
What, in your opinion, is what the Iranian people themselves want? I know you say it's a huge country and it's very disparate, but generally speaking,
I think it is clearer. I mean, they all want a free country, just like anybody else. They want freedom, they want democracy. But more clearer now in Iran, for an Islamic country, is what they don't want. Religion is extremely unpopular now in Iran. It may go from, if there is a regime change, it may go from a theocracy to the extreme, the other side, 100% secular democracy, or even anti-theocracy, anti-religion, because a lot of people there are extremely tired, and they have been let down by the way religion has been used against them. So they are very clear on what they do not want. What they want is, I think, a democracy, multi-party system and all that. They have had some experience because they do have scheduled elections in Iran. But as I said, presidential elections. But as I said, the candidates are handpicked they have to be endorsed by the mullahs. So that restricts their democracy. And the supreme leader does not change. But they are used to, they know the system, of putting a vote in a ballot box and waiting for the outcome. I think they all want that. The Iranian people want that. And authoritarian systems, theocracies are past tense. Past tense.
Having said that, maybe I want to slide into the Muslim world, and I have a theory or thesis. I would like you to see where you think on this, because Muslim society, let's say in Malaysia, where we are relatively comfortable, right? We don't have wars. We have jobs. The mass of the society may not be in a great situation or going much greater, as you rightly put at the beginning, because of the policies of decades. But we're pretty comfortable, relatively comfortable. Indonesia, to a certain extent, which has the biggest Muslim population in the country. You've got, in Western countries as well, Muslim societies. But somehow or other, they seem to be almost yearning for theocracy or theocratic leadership. And that goes to your Club of Doom thesis, right? I had a thought in my mind of the origins of this, which is the catalytic is the Muslim Brotherhood birth in Egypt. And then it was put on steroids when Khomeini take power in Iran. Because I saw that when you and I were going to university in the US, and how far that reach of that kind of thinking with respect to the revivalism of Islam and this thought of having a Muslim caliphate in all these Muslim countries to start off with, and expansion. That goes back then. Maybe, excuse me if I go slightly longer on this thesis for you to respond. I thought it reminded me when we were very young, how religious classes were taught, and how anti-Semitism was planted into the minds of young Muslims. When you don't even know there exists a state of Israel, you were taught that that Jews were enemies of the Prophet. They were the one who turned their backs on him in Medina and continued throughout the and that is repeated to you. So when they come of age, and then they see also, and they are put into a propagandistic situation where the state of Israel is seen as being being a colonial entity on the Arab world, right, and imposed upon on the Arab world. The reaction is visceral. However, I used to point out to my friends, and I said, we seem to forget that Jerusalem was never a Muslim territory. It was after the fact of the Islamic Caliphate that the Muslims were the original colonialists, if you were to ask, and the consequences of war. In any case, the Muslim Empire took hold of that, and the vestiges of that Muslim Empire was the Ottoman as the last one that lost the war, the First World War already. And the British became the Western power that took over the region. So war has consequences over the whole arc of history. So the question then becomes is that, hey, if you lost your war, accept the consequences, move forward like Japan did, like how Germany did, and look at what they are today. But the Muslim world seem to be unable to move from that kind of thinking, and it's fueled as well because of the thought of the holiest site being Jerusalem, right, Baitul Muqaddis. So they cannot move out of this paradigm because of the theocratic thinking. So then maybe you can comment on that, and then let's see whether we can come to whether we agree or disagree, and then how the whole Palestinian situation is to me, actually, I see being used by political powers, whether that be the PLO, then comes Hezbollah or Hamas, more for their own political power to continue the fight. And Iran having them as proxies to retain their power in Iran. So I at that point, I would like to hear your
opinion. They will reply that if you have been sitting on a piece of property for more than 500 years, all the previous history is forgotten. You are the owner. But you have a point there. I mean, you see, the Muslims, they invaded Jerusalem in 635 or 638.
Yeah. Omar.
The Prophet died in 632, and 638 they captured Jerusalem, and then after that, 650s and 670s, they took the whole of North Africa, all the way to Morocco, and I think it was around that time, the 650s, 670s, they crossed the Straits of Gibraltar and took Spain. Spain took about 50 years to that Iberian Peninsula. By 732, which is just 100 years after the Prophet, was the famous Battle of Tours in France, Battle of Tours, which is a suburb of Paris, I think. It's outside of Paris.
Yeah, I've been there.
But they lost. But the Muslims were stopped by Frank Charles Martel. What if they won all the way to Paris? So today, Paris will be part of the Islamic
They will be talking Arab.
And they'll say that it's been there for more than 500 years. You can't question it anymore. It belongs to us. So you are right. History is just how long you hold the territory. So maybe if you wait another 500 years, the argument will go away. But and then it took in the 600s and up to 700s, they invaded North Africa, Spain, and went into stop at the Battle of Tours. It took the Europeans 400 years. The First Crusade. The First Crusade was 1000 and something AD. The first century, 1000 something AD. So it took almost 400 years for the Europeans to react after the Muslim invasions of Spain and into France, and also they tried along the other corridor going up through Turkey, but Anatolia was They were all approaching from the east also, but Spain had fallen. So, and of course Jerusalem. So it took the Europeans about 400 years before they organized the first crusade. It was started after the Muslim invasions of Jerusalem, North Africa. But today the argument is it happened so long ago, it's ours now. Too bad. But the thing is, the claims have not really gone away, especially in Israel, because of these people called the Jews, who also claim to come from there. Historically, they have been there. Just as a side remark, in Muslims, the name for Jerusalem is Baitul Muqaddis. Baitul Muqaddis. Bait means house. Muqaddis means holy, sacred, sacred house. Baitul Muqaddis. This is actually a Hebrew word,
The irony of ironies.
In Hebrew, the temple, the Jewish temple, the first temple was built by Solomon. It's there in Jerusalem, and then the second temple was built at the same, I think it's about there. It was destroyed by the Germans in AD 70, by the Romans in AD 70. But the footings, the foundations are still there, and now they are planning to rebuild again. But anyway, the Jewish temple is a kind of rectangular structure. It's a very huge courtyard, and right in the center is a little cubicle, the sacred holy of holies, like the Kaaba in Mecca.
In Mecca.
They have a holy of holies, the sacred. It's a cubicle building where they do the sacrifices and things like that. And that building, the holy of holies in Hebrew, is Bait HaMikdash, the house that is sacred, Bait HaMikdash. In Hebrew, in Arabic is Baitul Muqaddis. So the name has remained. The name has been maintained. In a way, acknowledging that there is a Jewish president to this name. Baitul Muqaddis is Bait HaMikdash. So,
do you know what, right, guys? For someone like me, who actually, I openly profess not having any faith either. No, right? So I don't really like politics. I don't really have a faith. And I don't even see myself as really Chinese. so the things I feel like an outsider all the time, right? But it seems to me that for people who live in that region, which has sprouted three great faiths, right? Which all have a holy book there. And there's so much in terms of overlap between cultures and idiosyncrasies and likes and dislikes. It could so easily have been much more peaceful and smooth, right? So, I think it's a bit too late for that now. Too much water has passed under the bridge. What happens from here on in? And I think the so what matters, for the rest of the world. Where does it go? What is your interpretation of the temperature now?
It's as I said, the Middle East is a huge place. It's still confused by legacy issues, cultural issues, basically, religious issues, and then you have racial identities. Yeah. For example, you got the Druze, the Kurds, the Arabs, the Persians, the Armenians, Turks. Racial identity, linguistic identity, and then you have religious identities. The Muslims are Shia, Sunnis, and you got the Christians, you have the Jews. You have the Druze, who are a very unique religion by themselves and things like that. All these are legacies. They cannot... it is still important for them. That's why it's causing a lot of issues for people. They cannot unite. Some countries, I'm talking about Muslim countries, are trying to change that. I think... Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, he's doing a lot of changes, or he has done a lot of changes in the country. You can debate, depending on what is your own background, you can debate whether what he's doing is right or what he's doing is wrong. But he is making a lot of changes from where Saudi Arabia was before. Women can now drive cars, they can work, they can go out on their own, they can leave the country on their own travel, alone by themselves. Those are major changes in Saudi Arabia. Whether you agree or disagree, whether you're a Saudi or Sunni or whatever, the point is, these changes have been made. So once the changes have been made, and they've been around for like 10 years now, it's very hard to go back. Yeah. But you also lay down the principle that change can be made even in an impossible country like Saudi Arabia, you can have drastic change. And then you have other countries like UAE, which is going further ahead than Saudi Arabia. The UAE is actually extremely, well, they're very secular, and they have sort of their own heritage, especially the religious heritage they're not really hard up about it. They're not paranoid about it. So there are these changes happening in the Middle East, which hopefully people will start pondering. Not saying that everybody should follow the Saudi model, but that you can make changes. But certainly going the way they are does not solve their problems, especially it actually creates more problems. Like now the fighting in Syria is between the Druze and the Sunnis. And it's purely racial, because the Druze are a people, they are not really Muslim, they're a hybrid, they are amalgam of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. It's a unique religion. And of course, the Sunnis in Syria now don't like them. The Sunnis, they are basically Salafis, the fanatic type, jihadis. So there's a clash now as we speak in Syria. And yesterday and day before, I think the Israeli army went in to help to sort things out, but there's still fighting going on. But this is the legacy. These are the legacy issues in the Middle East.
Yeah, so what you're talking about in terms of the developments in Emirates as well as in Saudi, right, speaks a lot to what Sam has been speaking about the last couple of episodes without you around, which is to say that there seems to be two paradigms developing in the Middle East. One is the paradigm being developed by MBS and the cohorts who seem to be moving towards libertarianism, more egalitarianism, more freedoms and all that. And it's my belief as a person, right, that I think everybody wants to be free. Everybody wants to have independence. Everybody wants to have a certain kind of autonomy, which is very appealing in terms of what the Saudis are doing, right?
Agree or disagree, the young seem to like it.
Of course. Who doesn't want to be free, right?
The only problem I see actually everywhere is that when people in political power are Islamists in mind, or uses the religion to hold on to power, their motivation is to indoctrinate the people to be more theocratically inclined in how they run their daily lives.
With the end goal being subjugation.
The end goal being to have really not the word subjugation comes later.
Obedience?
Yes, more towards I would call it to make them being sheeps.
Sheep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to find a better follower, to be able to be malleable to the political power using Islam as the tool.
And the pathway is the mental capture.
Correct. So I want to take Syed back to where he was going at within the Palestinian-Israel issue to that extent, because I read his column on the leadership of Hamas and how they were jetting around, using all this Muslim country contribution, living in Switzerland, going private jet while their people suffer and are being used as tools whilst they live a good life. They live a modern life, and their people are being fed that they are fighting for freedom. So where do you think the end game is going to be now that we have seen? I mean, October 7 was really makes no sense to me. It was that the retaliation is going to be severe, right? Almost like
I wondered the same thing as well. I mean, why do this? Right? Because there's going to be retaliation.
Correct. Yeah. And yet, if you come to, I mean, the way the Muslim and also in the Far East, how much they condemn Israel, right? Look, if you poke the hornet's nest, you're gonna get it. The same thought I had when September 11 happened. I said, and I was seeing this whole thing in the Muslim world, that they've taken down the superpower, right? But I say, you guys are delusional, because the blowback that is gonna come is going to be monumental. The only losers are going to be the Muslims. So, in the same sense, actually, I think October 7th was a watershed for Israel-Palestine region, and how things are gonna move on from there on. Because I think Israel has said enough is enough, and they're going for the kill. All right, I don't know, and so my throw to you is, where do you see the end game? How do you think this progress?
Yeah, it was a suicide mission on hindsight. On hindsight, just like 9/11, it was literally a suicide mission. They flew the planes into the building and committed suicide. This one, as you mentioned, Hamas and Hezbollah, and which we discussed earlier, Hassan Nasrallah, Hezbollah has been killed. Ismail Haniyeh has been killed. The Hamas leadership has been killed. Hezbollah has been wiped out. Hamas has been defeated. I mean, why poke the hornet's nest? Why go and poke the elephant when you know he can stomp on you? But that's what has been done. So it was someone else's agenda. A lot of these things that we say are Islamic around the Middle East and around the world, they are not inherent by themselves. They do not come up on their own. It's not like everybody, all the Muslims suddenly want to establish an Islamic caliphate. No, it is somebody's agenda, some group, some political grouping, somebody who wants it, looking for their own political survival. So they create agendas and they ride it. Like Arab Spring. Arab Spring was a Muslim Brotherhood agenda. They had a lot of support from Obama. A Muslim Brotherhood they had some backing from the Obama and Clinton Obama administration, and the Arab Spring happened. Arab Spring was basically a Muslim Brotherhood game because Tunisia was taken over by the Ennahda party, which was Muslim Brotherhood party. Morsi was a Muslim Brotherhood guy. Erdogan is Muslim Brotherhood, yeah. So the Muslim Brotherhood, their flag was flying high for a while, but then they couldn't sustain it. They couldn't move the people forward, and they lost. They were taken out. Morsi was overthrown by the army, so now they're back. But it was an agenda, and the agenda of the Muslim Brotherhood was to establish caliphate and this and that. But it is a means to an end. What they want is they want power. So why not use religion, Islam? People are already Muslims. And, there are issues with the West, issues with Islamic countries being behind and the West, lording over the rest of the world. So these are all low-hanging fruit. Package it in a nice little package, paint it green, put an Islamic sticker on it, and sell it, and people will buy it. It's what they're doing. Same thing with Iran. When the Ayatollah took over Iran, of course, the Shah of Iran at the time and his regime, they provided a low-hanging fruit. There was a lot of oppression going on. There were a lot of unhappy people in Iran. Not everybody was rich. People were poor. And so the Ayatollah came and he promised religion and the second coming and this and that, packaged it in a nice religious package, and they took over Iran. Then they realized that they can't deliver. They're just same equal as the Shah. Just like the Muslim Brotherhood and other Islamic movements, they couldn't deliver anything new in the Middle East or the Islamic countries. So now, what's going to happen? They are not going to be able to achieve much on their own. We actually need to talk about the Abrahamic Accords. Please.
Yeah.
So now, the Middle Eastern countries have realized that from the time Israel was set up, 1948, until 73, 78, Camp David Accords, 1978, and then post-Camp David, don't forget, 1994, there was a president of Palestine. Yasser Arafat became president of Palestine. Talking about two states.
Solution.
Yeah. There was... The second state was there. Yasser Arafat was a president of Palestine. People forget. 1994, he became president of Palestine and president of the West Bank and Gaza. And he was president until he died in 2004. So for 10 years, there was a president of Palestine, of a unified Palestine, Gaza and West Bank. After he died, things went asunder, went chaotic. The PLO was remained or took West Bank, and the Hamas people moved into Gaza. They were already there, but they won in the elections. They won more seats. Hamas won more seats in Gaza, and the PLO Fatah won more seats in the West Bank. So they sort of became two separate countries. It's now shoot on sight. It's been shoot on sight since then. If the Hamas sees the PLO guys, the Fatah guys, shoot on sight. They're the total enemies. So now you see that West Bank does not shoot rockets into Israel. They've sort of, it's not that they've fallen in love with the Israelis, no. But they find that, they don't want to shoot rockets. They don't see it as a means to achieve anything.
Did you see, it's a quick one, sir. Did you see that there was overtures from tribal leaders in West Bank to Israel?
The Mukhtars. Yeah. So back to Gaza, because Gaza, Hamas is Muslim Brotherhood, and Muslim Brotherhood have their own agenda. Muslim Brotherhood is a huge organization. They operate in nearly all Muslim countries. As you said, Turkey, Erdogan is a strong supporter. In fact, he's a Khalifa of Muslim Brotherhood. So wherever there is an Islamic struggle per se, there are agendas behind it. It is driven top down. Somebody wants power.
Yeah.
They want power, money, politics, whatever.
Right.
And they use religion. They package it in whatever. If you're a Shia, if you're an Ayatollah, you package it in a Shia packaging,
Right.
Shia Islam.
Right.
And then you have the Muslim Brotherhood with their version of Islam. They package it, Caliphate and all that. And then when the ISIS guys came up after 2013, theirs was basically Wahhabism, Salafism. So there was a very violent version of religion, which they presented, and they found their supporters until they were militarily defeated by good old President Donald Trump. So every time there's an agenda that moves these Islamic groups and this quest for caliphate and all that, it does not come from the ground up. From the ground up, I think Muslims are just like any other people on the surface of this earth. We just want to go about our daily chores, go about, taking care of our families, paying for the house, paying for the car, getting the kids educated, living in a safe environment. It's different.
Same. I mean, if you travel the world, you talk to people in the street, we're all the same.
That's
right?
it. Yeah.
And the color of your skin is literally like 3 micrometers thick, right? So, I mean, if people have that perspective and realize they've been productized and packaged messaging too, right? And it's not as if, you're like incredibly much more intelligent by 50 or 50, 60 IQ than the next guy, right? Why don't people have that perspective?
Yeah, this is the thing.
I mean, if someone as dumb as me can like, I've been lied to for ages, right?
John, you're not dumb. That's the problem.
It's not as if I'm so much more smart than the next guy, you know what I mean?
There are certain entrenched
it seems to me it's because people feel so strongly about the tribe that they belong to. So in this case, the tribe is this faith, call whatever it's going to be. Do you know what I mean? So you see the same crazies in America. You see the same crazies in South America.
It's magnified by the vested interest. Wherever you go, anywhere in the world, it's magnified by the vested interest. The politicians in power or the authoritarians in power, they use this religion to safeguard their own position. So they need to create tensions and hatreds and all kinds of debates and arguments which are counterproductive actually. But to them, it helps them to secure their position. It's just politics. Because otherwise you see, nowadays the Muslim countries have a lot of problems, and you find that there are a lot of people who leave Islamic countries, right?
Yeah.
And they are refugees. And where do they go? Do they go to another Muslim country?
No.
They go to Europe.
They go to,
Oh,
They
so
go to
can
France.
we discuss that?
Can.
What I mean is,
Why?
So, Job.
Yeah.
Last night on Sky News Australia, they were showing a 10-minute documentary clip, Sam, of riots, immigrant riots in not just in France, in Spain, in Germany, in the UK, right? There's vast amounts of town-based domestic crime between hordes of immigrants, usually from Muslim countries, right, with the local populace. And you quite rightly point out, why don't they come and live in Malaysia or Indonesia?
The funny thing is, they go to the Western country and they're culturally not adaptive mentally to assimilate with that culture. That's one problem. Then the other problem, again, within their society, they will have, you see, you only need about, let's say, 20 to 30% of extreme thought and leadership, especially, that ferments violence and the need to hold power, like what Syed was mentioning. Okay, it is not. It's the violent minority that actually takes control of the society, because the rest of us just want to go and make a living.
Yeah.
Right. But the leadership, the political leadership, are the ones that is fermenting this, because the minority that they can control is the one that is the loudest, the one that is going to impinge on the rights of others, and the rights that, and that's how they take control. Now, may I just go back to MBS just for a short while, which is, I am a pretty big fan of what MBS is doing. Okay? Because I believe that the only way to change a theocratic-based society is top-down. It cannot be bottom-up. It doesn't work, right? And I went to Damam in 2020 before the COVID lockdown. I was actually shocked because I was visiting my staff who were operating there. And they were opening up. Ladies were coming to restaurants and they had no separation like before. And it was a big difference, and I saw it vividly. And I went to conference, and there were ladies who were no longer in hijabs. So that was never before in Saudi, right? So you can see palpable change. That was 5 years ago. So I have not been back yet. So first-hand information. But I think, therefore, it goes to a certain extent. I think the leadership in that region, especially the Palestinians, whether we like it or not, it will have to come via Israel, imposed by America, because the political leadership there depends on violence and money coming from the Iranian regime in order to survive. So that's my thought of where that's going, right? So then I think we've discussed these two parts. So let's look at what effect it has in Western societies. In the UK, in America, you're talking about, in the UK, we have jokes from our friends in the UK that says Birmingham is already an Islamic country, right?
Yeah.
Okay, they practically, I just saw, this Mufti, I was like, who had an OBE, he has no education, he's a dropout, right? But runs schools in the UK, Islamic schools, and he's been appointed as by the government to head the standards review board of the UK education. I was like, what the hell is wrong with the UK? Right? I mean, I myself personally has been up in arms since the appointments of religious scholars in our education department heading the ministry. I think it's absolute nonsense. Those people can't even pass SRP, right? And have doctors in front of their name, but they can't even form cogent sentences. Now, you have in America, like, where Ilhan Omar comes from, right? In Michigan, for example. So in Paris, the issues that they have in I think America is just starting to see the problem. I think Dallas, they want to set up an Islamic society only, Can you imagine that? Have you heard that news? Right? We know in Paris, the outskirts of Paris.
In Perth, Australia.
Yeah. So, I mean, how do you see this playing out? Because the West, we've been, you were in Purdue and Oklahoma, right? And, we see how it is. You go and there is a culture of of trust in the Western society. You put a quarter, you open the box, and you take a piece of newspaper, right? The society is trustworthy enough in their culture that you are expected to take for what you buy, and that's it. Nobody question it. You try that over here and see what happens, right? So, I think it's a clash of civilization, if you ask me. What do you think? I mean, how do you think this is going to play out? I don't think the West understands what they are facing.
The outlook is totally different.
Right.
The civilizational outlook, the cultural outlook is different, which is why these immigrants who go to the West, they face problems. The first generation, they face problems adjusting. And some of them come from very challenging or challenged backgrounds. So a lot of misbehavior or behavior that doesn't fit into the society that they are in. So that will take some time. But eventually, the bulk of immigrants to the West, Muslims including, and you can see now like in UK, Britain, you have second, third generation immigrants, Muslims already, especially from Pakistan. They're absorbed into the mainstream culture. Those who hold on to their religious beliefs and who have become radicalized, the word is radicalized, it happens, but they are very much fewer in number. But as you said, you only need 10% to be off the rails, and it can derail the entire train. So, but they are a small number. The majority sort of get assimilated and they get lost into the larger culture community. They forget their roots, so they become British people or they become Americanized and things like that. But more importantly, why the West is so attractive is that it allows you to be what you want to be. You have the freedoms. That's it. That's what people are looking for. And anybody, Muslims or whoever who goes to the West, they go like, I can do whatever I want to do, and I'm not bothered with my neighbors. My neighbors are not bothered with me. You see, which is so meaning that this is the natural state of human beings, even of Muslims. So the things that makes them misbehave or exhibit behaviors that seem disjointed are the result of agenda making by others. Someone, pokes them and manipulates the situation and makes them do this and do that. But in their natural state, they're just normal people. So if you want to help the Islamic countries, we have to help control this agenda setting, those groups that come with their own agendas, and try to curb their influence. And for that, we need discourse. We need open discussion, free speech, which is another product that is kind of absent in Muslim countries,
including ours.
That's a big problem here. When you don't have as much free discussion, free speech, then
even the ability to question norms, right, is kind of like prohibited.
Yeah.
I mean, you cannot question this, you cannot question that. So that in itself is dangerous.
So the one and only step in the battle to overcome this is just allow people to talk. That's it. The moment people can discuss openly and they can question, you find that these people who set the agendas, they lose their grip. They can lose their grip very fast. There's a huge reason for that, If I can deliver my famous lecture on scientific truth and religious truth.
Sure.
You will agree.
Yeah.
Because you see, real life depends on real things, tangible things. You must do real things, like, the studio works, this building stands. It's all based on science, engineering, mathematics, real stuff. Those are called scientific truths, right? Scientific truths, they are truths because they really work, right? It's very difficult to deny a scientific truth, okay? If the water boils at 100 degrees Celsius, it boils at 100 degrees Celsius. You're not going to be able to drink it at 100 degrees Celsius, No matter how many prayers you say, it's not going to happen. But then you have religious truth. Religious truth, to be a safe side, let me use a Christian example. Like Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ walked on water. Right? It's a religious truth. You have to accept it. If you don't accept that Jesus Christ walked on water, it's a bit difficult to be a Christian. Although now, 21st century, some Christians may try to find means to explain that. If Jesus Christ didn't raise the dead, it's difficult to be a Christian, because this is what you got to believe. And Jesus Christ is the Son of God. You have to believe all this. So these are religious truths which don't have a scientific basis. There's no way you and I are going to walk on water or change water into wine. But those are religious truths. Every religion has got religious truths. It's called faith. You take it or you leave it. If you don't accept it, then you can't belong to that religion. But here's where the bridge doesn't meet the
rubber meets the road.
The edge of the river. It doesn't cross the full river.
Right.
You cannot use religious truths, which are, a lot of it is non-scientific, illogical, to solve real world problems which run on scientific truths. This is a big problem in a lot of societies that still rely on religion. This is the huge problem in the Middle East, where religious truths hold a lot of sway, big influence on society, trying to solve issues which you need scientific truths to solve them. You cannot use religious truths to solve real world problems, or not to a great amount of success. Religious truths are good for spirituality, thinking about, otherworldly things and hereafter, things like that. That's how religions evolve. But they run on religious truths, which are not scientific truths. Jesus Christ could walk on water according to Christianity.
I saw Tiger Woods walk on water.
In winter. In winter.
On Nike commercial.
So you can't go design some system in your country, with your people, in a real world situation, based on something to do with the fact that, or the belief that Jesus walked on water. It's not going to work. Or Jesus converted water into wine. So this is where the Islamic countries, for example, they have things which they want to do based on faith. But the logical explanations, the scientific basis can be debated, highly debatable. Bottom line is,
religious truth cannot be debated.
Of course, if you want to be a member of that religion, you cannot debate it. Otherwise, you don't belong to that religion. It's as simple as that. It's faith. Either you take it or you leave it. If you take it, you belong. If you leave it, you're a disbeliever. It's as simple as that. But to try to connect that to real life, to real world, tangible world, that's where the problem starts. Because in science, you can debate. If you come up with a new phone, you press a button and a cup of latte comes out at the end. So I can debate. I said, no, you're trying to con me. You show me how it works, Then you have to show it. You have to show how it works. And we have to question, debate. And then if it works, I'm not going to blow myself up or blow you up.
Yeah.
Or if it doesn't work, I'm not going to blow you up either. We just do something else.
I think this is very interesting for Chuang as a non-Muslim, right?
As a non-faith, non-religious guy.
Yeah.
I read most of the... I did my early reading and I just decided it wasn't for me. Do you know what I mean? Because even at 9 years old, I could see the flaws in the system. Let's just not say which books I read, but I suffice to say I read most of them, right? So three of us are old enough to remember those days when this kind of discussion, even in a coffee shop, we were scared. Remember those days, right? Hey, don't talk like that. Hey, you're crazy. Can they come and get you? Remember those days?
No, I think now it's even worse.
No, but you've got this. You've got this. This is incredible.
You see how we couch our discussion, right? We are very careful.
So it's ironic because we are trying to play on the fact that most people don't understand what we're saying because of the language that we're using. But we want actually people to be more intelligent than they are, because then they will see the things that they've been lied to.
You see,
that's the irony here.
Yeah, here goes, right? I think what Syed points out in the Middle East is there's already a shift in terms of the ideology. Let's call it the ideology of governing. Right? Going from a theocratic base, which is religious based, to more secular based and scientific based.
Scientific.
Right?
Yeah. To what works.
To what works.
Yes.
Right?
I think they're coming to the realization.
Correct. I like his analogy of religious truth and scientific truth. I think that's a very good way
So
of...
I think people will not give up on religion because people do find religion, religion serves a purpose for a lot of people. So I don't think they're going to give up on religion. But what they have to switch their focus is that when you're talking about building a society, moving a country forward, building an economy, development, things like that, you have to be realistic, practical, logical, scientific. So that may entail separating the two. You keep religion in your heart. Religion belongs in the heart. You keep the religion in your heart, in your faith, your practice, your beliefs. You keep it there. And to solve all your other problems, real world issues, you have to be logical, you have to be rational, you have to be scientific. That's the only thing that works. Especially now with the 21st century, everything is so advanced. Of course, the latest gizmo is artificial intelligence, which we are just starting. We're just starting to crawl, and the possibilities seem
incredible. So I don't want to blow.
endless.
I don't want to blow sunshine up Uncle Sam's ass, right? But in America, right? Pretty much most of what is decided in America is done on their holy book. Do you know what I mean? Right? And Christianity plays a big part in America's.
What do you mean that it's done on their holy book?
It's the Bible. I mean, even the president has to show an avowed interest in their religion, right? True or not? True or not? False or not?
No, I would say the difference is this.
Well, I would say that America has been able to enrich itself so well from an economic standpoint, even with this.
Well, there's a very
this ideology.
There's a very big difference, Chuang, when you look at how the American.
I just want to say, because faith exists everywhere, right?
Correct.
To what extent, and where do you keep it? Do you know what I mean, right?
I know, but if you look at why I've been studying the U.S. Culture Society quite closely because of my interest.
Actually, you are in fact American, right, Sam?
No, I'm no. I mean, but the institution, when it was already formed, they already foresee this. The founding fathers foresaw it. I mean, where they intentionally have separation of religion and state, where they have check and balances within their institution. So they institutionalize a system of governance, right? That in spite of it being, the society may have a religious bent to a certain proportion, it does not basically undermine the institution to make it function. Right? And grow and develop.
That's what I'm suggesting here. They've managed to compartmentalize both effectively.
See, this is the
and not
problem.
let one hijack the other.
So what I was trying to imply to Syed, and I wanted his thought on this, right? Islam and the Muslim theocratic religion has gone a long way already in the Middle East and gone through a few permutation and evolution, right? And we are seeing today the differences between Saudi, the GCC countries, and all the tribal issues that you still mentioned that are very much being powered by religious inspired dogma. Okay, in order to control the population and carry out their consolidation of power and fermenting whatever the violence that is still ongoing. Whereas when you look at those that have evolved, right, and the latest to me being Saudi, right, and in a very drastic way, which is to do exactly that, which is to use scientific truth and put the religious truth at the back burner.
In the heart.
Leave that in the heart, The problem lies where the violence in the Middle East is where it is still a tool for the for those who wants to have power.
It's agenda setting.
Yeah, exactly.
The politicians, the
Right.
authoritarian people, the monarchies, everybody's got an agenda.
So, I mean, if I look at the last 3 to 4 decades of Malaysia, right? It's actually agenda setting. It's agenda setting of the how we educate our majority society and all that. So the Middle East, I think, is going to get ahead of even us, looking at where they are going. I mean, the last I was down in Abu Dhabi, for example, right? The people there, in terms of religiosity, or the outward appearance of it, right, in their daily life is so much different than what is happening within our side of the region, whether it's Malaysia or Indonesia. Singapore, on the other hand, I was just back from Singapore last night. The maritime lawyer, one of their best is a Malay.
Malaysian Malay. Malaysian.
Singaporean.
Okay.
Right? And so we know very well. So where do you think the Muslim world is heading, my friend?
Maybe we should wrap up on, because we're short of time, right?
Yeah.
On the Abrahamic Accords.
Sure.
Agree or not, like it or not, it's going to happen.
Right.
And it's going to create major change in the Middle East. We were talking earlier, from 1948, formation of Israel, until 50s, 60s, 70s, Camp David Accord 78, peace treaty between Egypt and Israel, and then going to the Arab Spring, there was a phase where the risk profile changed in the Middle East. The threat profile in the 1940s, you had the after 1940s, after Second World War, third world countries became independent. Colonialism receded. While the British and the French withdrew, there were more independent countries throughout the world, especially in Africa, Middle East. They were left on their own. They had to govern themselves on their own. But the colonials, especially the British, left behind solid infrastructure. Systems, administrative systems, education systems, health systems, land survey. The British were quite good at that. Roads. So that carried them by itself. It had its own momentum. They just had to manage it, and things went very well. And one of the beneficiaries is our country, our region, Singapore, Malaysia. We benefited a lot from that. But unfortunately, in the Middle East, people started experimenting because they were not, I put it down to skill sets. They didn't know. There was no Lee Kuan Yew there. They didn't have skill sets to go to the next level. But they had to answer to their people every day. So they started experimenting to keep the people's support. So some went into authoritarian systems, military dictatorships, some turned to religion. But the military dictatorships held sway for a long time. Egypt has been basically military until today. Started with Gamal Nasser, and then Sadat. These were all military people. And then what's the guy who replaced Sadat, who died?
Sisi?
No, before Morsi. The Air Force pilot, Hosni Mubarak. But was general in the Air Force.
Yeah, he was the one who signed. Was it he the one who signed the treaty with Israel?
That was Sadat.
Sadat.
And then Morsi took over for a couple of years or less than 2 years, and then now replaced by Sisi, another general. Syria has been army throughout, and so it's been army dictatorship. And then the Islamists came in, influential. You find that Saudi Arabia, the Wahhabis and Salafis had a very strong influence. You find that in Tunisia, the Muslim Brotherhood. In Egypt, there's a strong influence of religion. But basically, it has been authoritarian. But the threat profile at that time, they used the new state of Israel as the big boogeyman. The Israelis were going to take over all our countries. Greater Israel is going to expand until Saudi Arabia and everything. All these maps started coming out. Israel was a boogeyman, which helped these authoritarian regimes stay in power. Then the risk profile changed. They faced more threats from inside. The Islamic agenda, the Islamists, the jihadis started, fighting back, pushing back, and toppling governments. So Israel now, since 1948, about 70 over years, they have proven that no, we are staying put. We only want, this is what we want. And they have given up. They did give up. They gave the Sinai back to Egypt, Camp David. They gave Gaza to Palestinians and the West Bank. So they just said, no, we just want to stay within this area.
This border, yeah.
And the Golan Heights, there's an offer on the table. If Syria signs a peace treaty with Israel, I think they will return the Golan Heights. Maybe now, not now, it's going to be very difficult, but they have always been able to trade away the land for peace. So they just want to stay in their place. The Arab countries, or substantial number of them, realize this now. Israel is not a threat to them, which is why now Saudi Arabia is so friendly to Israel. And you have the Abrahamic Accords now. Morocco has signed on. UAE has signed on. And they're expecting Syria, this new guy, to sign on with Israel. But now there's some fighting going on. But the big catch will be Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia is really inclined towards... you can see it establishing relationships with Israel, which is why one theory says October 7th
happened because of that.
To derail the Abrahamic Accords. The Abrahamic Accords, because, it was moved by Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, when Trump won. Trump 1.0.
Trump 1.0, yeah.
Trump 1.0 moved Abrahamic Accords through Jared Kushner. But he was able to move it because there is already an undercurrent among Arab countries, some Arab countries, the important ones. They were ready. It's time to make peace with Israel because now the risk profile has changed. The threat profiles have changed in the Middle East. Israel is not a threat militarily to any Arab country. They have proven it. If they wanted to, they could have invaded Egypt and kept Sinai, and just say, forget about it. They can do it probably overnight, which they did now in the Golan Heights. Because of the chaos in Syria, Israel has moved troops completely taken over the Golan Heights now. Because they are saying that we do not know what's going to happen in Syria. And it's true because this guy, the new president or ruler of Syria, Jolani, he only controls less than 40% only Damascus and surrounding areas. Outside of that, you have other groups, the Kurds. So many groups are in Syria. So the Israelis are worried. So because of that, they moved their troops into the Golan area now, completely taken over. But I think if they can have a peace treaty, they will give that up too. Because they have no intention of invading other countries. They want to stay put and build their own country. The Arabs seem to accept that now. The Arabs are realizing that, the Jews just want to have their holy land and they want to stay there. And they're not a military threat. They're not imminent or existential threat to us, but the threats in their own country are increasing. You find various Islamic groups, jihadi groups, political opponents organizing themselves and exerting more pressure on the ruling regimes. And these people are not democratic. There's no democracy. This is the problem. This is the biggest problem in the Middle East. There's no democracy. So if I lose my perch, I lose my head, you see. So that's why now they feel that it's time to make friends with Israel. That's the push that is coming from the Arabs. That is where the Abrahamic Accords are coming from, which is why they are happening.
How revolutionary do you feel or do you think the Abrahamic Accords has been?
Ultimately, it'll have a huge impact on the psychology of the Arab street, the general masses, because for the last 70 years, the Jews are the enemy, they are the wicked people who have taken our land. Suddenly you're going to have a Jewish ambassador in your country. You're going to have your ambassador open up your embassy in Israel. There's going to be travel. And Israel, without a doubt, it is a very developed economy, very advanced economy. They have much to offer in terms of products. They buy a lot of things. They will import a lot of things because they make things. So the Middle East will be a source of resources for Israel. A lot of things will go from Middle East into Israel. That means trade. That means money. And people will realize that. So it is going to create a psychological impact on the Arabs because these people who have been enemies now for 70 over years, suddenly now they are friends. So that will change the way people think. And this is where I foresee the boogeyman is will disappear. Once you make peace with Israel and Abrahamic Accords, you cannot be beating the war drum against Israel in the local market and bazaar anymore. So that will make people think like, okay, so we don't have any more enemies. Israel is no more an enemy. So they may decide to focus their attention against other things, like, then what's the problem? What's making our lives challenging or difficult, or why can't we have more change? If we can recognize Israel and make peace with Israel, why can't we have other changes in our society, move forward? So they will start thinking about democracy and the freedom to speak and things like that. So there's going to be change in the Middle East.
Yeah.
But for the immediate urgent requirement now is for the Middle East regimes to safeguard their own perch, and they see that in making friends with Israel. And especially now, the Americans have generally been withdrawing from the Middle East. They don't want to engage, and Trump is a good example. He doesn't want to spend money. He doesn't want to engage so much. So you find that over time, the U.S. security umbrella thing might recede, which it already has. They pulled out from Afghanistan. They pulled out from Iraq. So if that happens, then who's gonna manage the security umbrella? Who's going to provide the security cover in the Middle East? So this is where the Israelis may step in one way, or you just create peace.
Yeah.
Make peace with everybody. You don't need security umbrella.
I can see the GCC, the Emirates, and Saudi having a solution. At least MBS is trying, which is to diversify the economy, and actually using the oil wealth to try and create other industries so that their people can be well off. I think that's the only solution for any country, if you ask me. I mean, that's the story of China's stability internally. So that's a challenge for them, being such a big country. And that's a challenge also for all the other Muslim countries, so to speak, like ourselves and Indonesia. Yeah. So, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of color or stripe, all human beings want the same thing, right? All the things that you talked about earlier, Syed.
Exactly.
Just the ability to put food on the table, take care of your family, and to have a peaceful life, and have some people that you love and trust. Do you know what I mean? That's all we want, right?
That's right.
I think I speak on behalf of Sam to say that, Syed, you're one of the very, very few people in Malaysia that are able to weave a very compelling and very truthful narrative between geopolitics, between faith and the human condition. And you've given us a real perspective into what's happening in the Middle East so that people can better understand it and then make better decisions for themselves. Because at the end of the day, people need to have that truth in front of them to be, I think, more well-rounded human beings and to make better decisions for our family. I think also I speak on behalf of Sam to say that, we're in the early stages of the Gutshot podcast, but I can easily see how you will be a regular fixture to talk about not just the Middle East and what's happening around there, but also Malaysia. And I think, this kind of perspective.
Yeah, he has, on the economic perspective, we haven't touched.
We haven't even touched that side. So I can see how we're going to have many very colourful discussions in the future. Yeah, Sam?
Yeah, I want to thank Syed. I think it's been a great discussion.
I've
enjoyed this, Thanks again, brother, for coming on.
Yeah, man. And, my first time I'm meeting you in person, in the flesh, after having read your blog for so many years, you've lived up. People say you shouldn't meet your heroes, right? I think in this case, it's fully justified. There's been no disappointment whatsoever. In fact, you've surpassed all expectations. So thank you, Syed. You're our first guest.
Thank you.
And you will definitely not be the last time on this podcast, I can assure you.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Thank you very much, Syed. Okay.
Cheers.
Thank you.
That's good.
All right. Cool.
Well done. I love that conversation. That's a beautiful conversation. Oh, this bad.